We press M to open the map, and if we use the scroll wheel on the mouse, we can zoom out and we can see the entire world map. We can see that the world map is divided into different regions. Each region has its own name. For instance, we have Godscroft or Endless Shore, or right now I am on Tempest Island. We can also see that each region is divided into region zones, and if we zoom in, we can see that each region zone is controlled by a base. Whoever owns that base will quote-unquote own that zone. For instance, the zone De Gale is owned by the Colonials because the relic base is owned by the Colonials. If we go to the side, we can see that over here, Lion's Fort, nobody owns the relic base, and that means that it is a neutral region zone. And if we look at Myrmidon Stay, we can see that it is owned by the Wardens, and that is why the region zone is blue. To return to our position on the map, we can simply hit spacebar, and that will focus our map on our position. The map we are currently in will have a grid overlay. With that grid overlay, we can indicate specific places on the map. We can do that by using the letter that is on the top row of that grid overlay and the number that is on the side of that grid overlay. And we can even do a finer grained indications. When we zoom in, we can see that the large squares are divided into 9 smaller squares. Each large square has a size of 125 by 125 meters, which will result in the smaller squares being 46.6667 meters by 46.6667 meters. To get an easy read on a certain spot on the map, we can simply hold down the control key and click on the place on the map that we want to reference, and we can see that in our chat window it placed the name of the region, it placed the name of the large square being H2, and the name of the smaller square within the large square, which is a K1. In the top left, we can see the state of the war panel, which indicates how many victory towns each side has. Right now, the Colonials have 18 out of the required 32 victory towns, and the Wardens have 19. Victory towns are denoted on the map by a circle and a flag icon over the main base. Below that, we can see the panel with war achievements. Below that is the map legend, where we can toggle on and off different types of information on the map by simply clicking on the boxes behind the names. In the bottom left is a info panel that tells us that I am on a Tempest Island. It is day 448 in game of this war, and that it's nearly 10 o'clock in the evening in game. It also tells us that I'm currently on Shard Baker. If one faction owns an entire region, for instance here the Colonials, Akrithia, and the other faction holds the entire other region, in this case Kalokai, we can see that the border between those regions will be red. That means it is a contested border, and on a contested border, border bases will spawn, which will help with getting a foothold in the enemy's region. On a contested border, there will be no map intelligence available within 100 meters of the contested border on your faction's side of the contested border. A contested border will stop being a contested border if one of the faction captures a town hall or relic base in the enemy's region. When we look in the bottom left panel on our map, we can see that it has been quite some time since we last updated our map intelligence. One way of updating your map intelligence is by opening a base. So if we escape out of the map, and if I press E to use the town base, we can see in the top left that it says map intelligence has been updated. If we now press M to open the map again, we can see that our latest update was at day 448 at 11:15 in the evening. Another way of having your map continuously updated is with the help of a radio. For that we need a radio, so we come to this base and we grab the radio. We make sure that it's not in our backpack but in our equipment, so we tab out of this menu, we press tab to open our inventory, and we click on the radio. That will take it from our backpack into our equipment slot. If we now tab out of this menu and press M to open the map, we can see in the bottom left that every 5 seconds our map will be updated. When we disable all information layers except for the bases, we can see all the bases on the map. We can see the town bases, forward operating bases, relic bases, bunker bases, keeps, and border bases. If we hover over a base, we get a drop down menu, and in the top row we can see the amount of soldier supplies, garrison supplies, and bunker supplies that are currently in the stockpile of this base. In the second row we can see the upgrades that have been researched in this town base. In this instance it has the provisional garrison and the small garrison and the large garrison, and industry, occupied town, and fortifications are all unlocked. Below that we see a list of all the available weapons and other supplies that are available in the stockpile of this base. If we do the same thing for a bunker base, in the second row we can see whether or not it has the garrisons unlocked, whether it has the infantry garrison, AT gun garrison, or the howitzer garrison unlocked. This base currently does not have the howitzer garrison unlocked, and we can also see if it has the observation bunker, concrete deployment point, and advanced bunkers. If we hide all the information layers on the map except for the resources layer, we can see all the resource fields. That includes the salvage fields, component fields, sulfur fields, oil fields, and coal fields. And it will also show us the resource mines that are on the map. So for instance, the sulfur mine, the component mine, and the salvage mine. If we hover over a resource field, we can see how many nodes are still in reserve and are able to spawn. The salvage field has 110 salvage nodes that can still spawn. This component field is entirely empty. This sulfur field has 130 nodes left for spawning. If we hover over a resource mine, we can see its current stockpile. So this sulfur mine has 117 sulfur in its stockpile, and it is currently not fueled, as we can see that it has no diesel and no petrol. If we go to the component mine over here, we can see that the component mine is active. We can tell by the constantly upticking number of components, and we can see that it is fueled with more than 1,000 liters of diesel and 202 liters of petrol. When we only turn on the structures layer, we have a good view of all the structures. So we can see, for instance, if we hover over the refinery, that it will show us in a drop down what is currently in the stockpile of the refinery. If we hover over the mass production factory, we can see for each category how many orders are currently being processed. If we go to a normal factory, we can see the same thing. For each category, it will show us how many orders are currently being processed there. If we hover over a safe house, we get a similar drop down as we get with bases. In the top, it will tell us how many soldier supplies, garrison supplies, and bunker supplies are in the stockpile. It will tell us which upgrades are available, so provisional, a small, and a large garrison in this instance. The artillery shelter is also researched, and this safe house has a radio station. And below that we can see that in the stockpile of the safe house these supplies are available. If we hover over a seaport or a storage depot in the drop-down, we can see which created supplies are in its stockpile. If you have access to different stockpiles in a storage depot or a seaport, you can see in the top right of the drop-down menu that it says a tab, and if we now tab, we can tab through the different stockpiles that we have access to. This includes your own personal stockpiles and the stockpiles from other people that you have the access code to. The locations information layer will show you the names of the different region zones and other named locations on the map. So for instance, here in the Deadlands, the region zones are, for instance, Abandoned Ward, Callahan's Boot, the Salt Marsh, Brine Glen, and the Pits, and the named locations are things like Hope's Causeway, the Steps, the Blade, Poma Annex, Plaza, and the Crossing. The map host information layer kind of speaks for itself. If you toggle it on, you will be able to see the map host, and if you toggle it off, it will hide the map post, which can be very useful if you need to see what is in the stockpile of a base or to see the intelligence at a certain spot. Turning on and off the map post might help you. The region zones information layer will show you the shape of the region zones and whether it is controlled by the colonials or by the wardens, or whether it's neutral. The intelligence information layer will show us infantry and vehicles, different structures like watchtowers and defenses that are under the cover of a watchtower, a observation bunker, or a observation tower. Green circles indicate colonial infantry and blue circles indicate warden infantry. The same goes for all vehicles. They are indicated by blue and green triangles, and a vehicle can be any vehicle, so either a logistics vehicle or a combat vehicle. Defensive structures like pillboxes and rifle garrisons are denoted by the pentagon icon on the map. Watchtowers are indicated by the colored diamond shapes with the translucent white circle around it, where the translucent white circle indicates the reach of the watchtower under which it will gather intelligence. If we place a listening kit within 80 meters of a structure that produces intelligence, like a observation tower, an observation bunker, a watchtower, or an LUV, we can siphon off the intelligence that that structure is gathering. If we are taking the intelligence from that structure, we can see that by the flashing icon. So over here, that is a observation bunker, and we are taking the intelligence that the observation bunker is taking, and we can see that the icon of the observation bunker is flashing. Different facilities are indicated on the map by this icon. There are no distinguishing icons between the different facilities, so each facility building will show this icon on the map.